Two fake cops walked into a Boston museum at 1:24 a.m. and walked out 81 minutes later with $500 million worth of priceless art, including the only seascape ever painted by Rembrandt and one of just 34 Vermeer paintings in existence. 35 years later, none of the 13 stolen masterpieces have ever been found, making this the greatest unsolved art heist in history. The empty frames still hang in the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum today, waiting for artwork that may never return. But here's what the thieves didn't know. Their crime would launch the most expensive manhunt in FBI history and reveal connections to the Boston mob that go deeper than anyone imagined. March 18, 1990. The Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum wasn't just any museum. It was a $200 million time capsule, built by America's most eccentric art collector. Isabella Stewart Gardner had constructed her Venetian palace in Boston, with strict instructions in her will. Nothing could ever be moved, sold, or changed. Every piece had to stay exactly where she placed it forever. This obsession with permanence made it the perfect target. The thieves knew exactly what they were looking for, and they knew the museum's security was laughably weak. Just 2 guards and motion detectors that wouldn't alert police. Boston was still recovering from St. Patrick's Day celebrations when 2 men in police uniforms approached the museum's side entrance at 1:24 a.m. They pressed the buzzer and told the night guard they were responding to a disturbance call. Security guard Rick Abeth made a fatal mistake. He broke protocol and let them in. Within minutes, both guards were handcuffed and duct-taped in the basement, their eyes covered, ankles bound. "Gentlemen, this is a robbery," the thieves announced. But this wasn't just any robbery. It was about to become the crime of the century. The thieves had the run of one of America's most prestigious museums for 81 minutes. Motion detectors tracked their every move as they methodically ransacked the Dutch room, slashing Rembrandt's Christ in the Storm on the Sea of Galilee right out of its frame. They grabbed Vermeer's The Concert, worth $200 million alone, and 5 Degas sketches. But here's the strange part. They passed by paintings worth even more money and instead stole a bronze Chinese beaker from 1200 BC and Napoleon's eagle finial from a flag. These weren't art experts. They were following someone else's shopping list. When the day shift arrived at 8 a.m., they found the guards still bound in the basement and 13 priceless works missing. The FBI immediately launched what would become their longest-running investigation. The crime scene told a bizarre story. The thieves had made 2 trips to their car, taking their time like they owned the place. They knew exactly where the security camera printouts were kept and understood that the motion detectors wouldn't alert police. This wasn't random. It was an inside job, or at least planned by someone who knew the museum intimately. The FBI's investigation quickly led to Boston's underworld. The prime suspects, George Reisfelder and Leonard DiMuzio, 2 small-time criminals connected to mobster Carmelo Merlino, who ran an auto repair shop in Dorchester. The theory: organized crime families were planning to use stolen art as bargaining chips with federal prosecutors. Get caught on drug charges. Trade a Rembrandt for reduced jail time. It was the perfect crime. Except the mob bosses kept getting arrested, and none of them seemed to know where the paintings actually were. By the mid-1990s, the main suspects were dropping like flies. George Reisfelder died of a cocaine overdose in 1991. Leonard DiMuzio was shot dead in 1999. Carmelo Merlino died in 2005. Every lead seemed to end in a graveyard. But one man kept surfacing in the investigation: Robert "Bobby" Gentile, an elderly Connecticut mobster who claimed complete innocence despite overwhelming evidence linking him to the stolen art. When the FBI raided his property in 2012, they found a secret buried compartment in his backyard shed, but it was empty and flooded. In 1997, investigative reporter Tom Mashberg got the call that every journalist dreams of. A man claiming to have access to the stolen paintings picked him up from the Boston Herald offices and drove him to a warehouse in Brooklyn. In a dark storage unit, by flashlight, the man unrolled what appeared to be Rembrandt's Storm on the Sea of Galilee. Mashberg could see the signature on the ship's rudder, and the edges were cut exactly as described by the museum. But when authorities tried to set up a deal for the painting's return, the mysterious contact vanished, leaving behind only questions. The Gardner Museum has offered the largest private reward in history, $10 million for information leading to the safe return of all 13 stolen works. A separate $100,000 reward is offered just for Napoleon's eagle. But here's the catch. The art market for stolen masterpieces is virtually non-existent. You can't sell a world-famous Vermeer at auction or display it publicly. So where do you put a $200 million painting that everyone in the world is looking for? The FBI believes the artwork was separated shortly after the theft and scattered along the eastern seaboard. In 2021, Netflix released This Is a Robbery, a 4-part documentary that brought global attention back to the case. The series explored every theory, every suspect, every false lead that had consumed investigators for 3 decades. But even with renewed international interest and millions of viewers learning about the heist for the first time, no credible tips materialized. The documentary proved what the FBI already knew. After 35 years, the thieves had either perfectly hidden their crime or taken the secret to their graves. Robert Gentile, the last living person believed to have knowledge of the heist, died in 2021 at age 85. Until his final breath, he maintained his innocence. Even though the FBI found evidence linking him to the stolen art, and a Boston Herald newspaper from March 1990 reporting the theft with handwritten notes about what each piece might sell for. His death marked the end of an era, with all the original suspects and their associates now dead. The FBI was left chasing ghosts and following leads that seemed to evaporate into thin air. Today, the FBI's art crime team continues to follow leads around the world. They've traced potential sightings to private collections in Japan, organized crime networks in Eastern Europe, and wealthy oligarchs who might unknowingly own stolen masterpieces. Advanced technology now allows them to analyze decades-old evidence in new ways, and international cooperation has never been stronger. But the clock is ticking. After 35 years, some experts believe the paintings may have been destroyed or damaged beyond repair. Walk through the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum today, and you'll see them immediately. The empty frames hanging exactly where Isabella placed the artwork over a century ago. Museum policy dictates that nothing can be moved from its original position, so the frames remain as placeholders for the missing works and symbols of hope awaiting their return. Visitors from around the world come specifically to see these empty frames, touching monuments to the greatest unsolved mystery in art history. If the paintings still exist, who has them? A private collector hiding them in a Swiss vault? The Russian mob using them as collateral for arms deals? Someone's grandmother who unknowingly inherited stolen masterpieces? The FBI believes the thieves initially planned to steal just the Rembrandts for quick money, but woke up on March 19th to realize they'd committed the heist of the century. The problem with stealing the world's most famous paintings is that they become impossible to sell and even harder to hide. 35 years later, the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum heist remains the perfect unsolved crime. No one has been arrested, no artwork recovered, no credible leads developed. The thieves accomplished what every criminal dreams of. They got away with it completely. But their perfect crime came with a perfect curse. They stole paintings so famous they could never enjoy them, never sell them, never even look at them without risking exposure. They turned priceless masterpieces into worthless secrets, and in doing so, created the greatest mystery in criminal history.